Hey everybody, how's it going? Tom here from ThumbTemps.com, and today we're going to be going over how to create a thumbnail from absolute scratch. We're going to get the resources, which is the background image, the logo, and then we're going to create a new project in Photoshop and get going from there. So let's go ahead and go grab our images. Whoops, I left that open. And I left that open too. Well, alrighty. I did a previous try at this just to kind of warm up a little bit because it's been a really long time since I've recorded anything. So let's go ahead and search for Battlefield 1 since that's something big that's up and coming, and then tack on the tag wallpaper as well. Now the reason why I tack on wallpaper, let's go to images first, is because it results in images that are wallpapers. So, so they're going to be more the aspect ratio that I'm looking for, and they're going to be bigger resolution. So let's say I take that wallpaper tag off of my search query. It's going to result in different sized images. So here you can see I got a 930 by 518. That would work, but it's not really what I'm looking for, and it's not the best of quality. Down here we have stock images. You have images that don't pertain necessarily to marketing. You have third-party images that people got. So adding in wallpaper kind of gets you more of those stock images that are better for thumbnails because the company's actually using them themselves to promote the game. Um, and again, you're absolutely free to not use these. These just tend to be better for everybody when selecting for thumbnail templates. So let's go ahead and just select a stock image here that's 1920 by 1080. You can do smaller than that, you could do bigger than that, but if your project is say 720 or 1280 by 720, you do not want to go under that with your image resolution, otherwise it's going to result in bad quality. So we're going to go with 1920 by 1080. That will give us room to stretch our image to crop, tilt, edit it in any way that we please. And then one thing that a lot of people don't know is that you can click on this 1920 by 1080 in Google, and it will result in a bunch of images from that one image that are different resolutions from different sources. So it's going to search all the sources it knows that has this one particular image. So before we were looking at a 1910 or 1920 by 1080 image, and here we have a 3840 by 2160 image, better quality. So I'm going to go with that. It will give me even more room to scale and adjust. Now, you don't have to do this. That 1920 by 1080 would have worked perfectly fine. I could have even gone down to 1280 by 720 if I wanted to. But, bigger, better, why not? I can delete it later. And whenever I save it again through Photoshop, it's going to be re-rendering it anyway. So you may as well get what you'll want so you have what you need to work with. Alright, now we have our image. Let's go ahead and get our logo. So again, we'll go Battlefield 1 and tell it that we're looking for a logo, and then we're going to go PNG. You can also go transparent, but I like PNG. PNG is a photo type that allows for transparency. GIF or GIF also allow that, but they're not that common, and that's simply because they're just not as high resolution as PNG can get. So we're going to go ahead and go with PNG here, and let me show you exactly what that. So this is the image we're going to end up getting if you're following along. And you can see in the background here you have kind of those checkered squares going on in the back there. That means that the image is transparent, which means there's no color behind this Battlefield 1 logo at all. And that's exactly what we're looking for. So on the contrary, something like this obviously has a color in the background. It would be like that if it's a JPG extension on that file type. I can try and look for one right quick. So right here you can see it's just white. There's no checkered on that background. So that means that whenever you import it into Photoshop, it's going to be white there. And that's obviously not what we want. So we want that checkered. So we're going to come up here and we're going to get this image. Right click, save image. And we'll just call this logo. Oh, I almost did it again. Logo. Okay, and we're good to go into Photoshop now. So, first things first, let's create a new project. So File, New, 1280 by 720 with a resolution of 72. Sounds good to me. You can also adjust your background right here, but I normally just let that go. Hit OK. I hope my mouse is showing. Didn't really check that before. Alright, and next thing that we're going to do is double click on the background layer right over here. That will pop this up. Just hit OK. And that's just going to unlock the background. The reason why I do that is it allows me to select it, which will allow me to select the entire canvas. So hold down Command or Control if you're on Windows and hover over this preview and you will get this icon right here. Go ahead and click on it and it will select the whole canvas. That becomes useful later on. So just keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and bring in our image right here. Doesn't look like it ever completely finished downloading. Okay, so we have it in here. First thing we're going to do, look at the top. We drug it in, but it didn't drag in completely correct. Now we could just move it up one, but let's say for example, you don't notice that. One thing I got in the habit of doing is slightly extending beyond the borders. Since I get a resolution bigger than my image or my canvas size anyway, this doesn't really hurt it in any way, shape, or form. So just go ahead and before you accept that, or if you already did accept that, let's say, whoops, hit the wrong one. So let's say you popped it in and you hit accept. Okay, go Command or Control and then hit T. And that will bring up the transform. That's basically what happens whenever you drag an image into Photoshop. So now we're back here. Now hold down Shift and Option or Alt if you're on PC, and then come up to the corner, click down and drag outward ever so slightly. And that's going to extend the image from the center. So I'm just going to go ahead and drag it in here a little bit more. Right there's okay. And then just hit return, enter, hit that little check mark that's right up here, whatever you feel like doing. And then go make sure that you have the move tool selected and go ahead and move it to however you want it. A quick way to move it is to hold down Shift and then use the arrow keys that will move it 10 pixels at a time as opposed to 1 pixel. So you can see the difference there. And then to make sure that this dude is centered, we're going to go ahead and use that selection shortcut that I showed you earlier, which is Command or Control, and then hover over that and then click on it. So that selects the background. Come up here to the Move tool, and that will give us these alignment options up here in the control panel of Photoshop. Now these are tool specific, so if you have a different tool selected, they're not going to be there. Make sure you have that Move tool selected. And then go ahead and select the Align Horizontal Centers if you're following along. And didn't look like it moved at all, so we were already good. But let's say he is way over here. If I click on that, it's just gonna, whoa, what happened? Oh, I moved the selection with it. Okay, so let me go ahead and just undo that. I still never did learn the undo buttons on Photoshop within Mac. Okay, so now we're back here. Select that off. Come over here. All right, now he's way over there. Reselect the background. Move tool, good. And if I go ahead and select the Align Horizontal Centers, that's just going to center align him based off the horizontal axis. So now he's centered within the left and right portion of Photoshop within our canvas. So Control or Command D to deselect that. We're good on that front. Now, just to keep everything nice and tidy, go ahead and create a folder. That's right down here. Within the layer panel, double click on the name to rename it. We'll just name this background. Click and drag our wallpaper right on up in there and go ahead and close it. Create yet another folder. We're going to call this one Adjustments. And you can see right up here I have this Adjustments panel open. If you don't have that open, go up to Window and make sure there's a check mark right there next to Adjustments. If there is, that means it's open, and you should either see it here or within this bar here. Okay, now there's three main options I typically use when creating thumbnails, and that is the levels, the curves, and the hue saturation. We're going to go through these in that order. So Let's go ahead and click on levels. Now, what this does is allows me to adjust the pure blacks and the pure whites. So the left side is the pure blacks right there. If I drag that in, you can see all the blacks get really black. Even the grays turn to black. So that's changing the level that the color needs to be in order for it to be pure black. So you can see right here are the different levels within the image between black and white. Same thing happens with white. Drag it all the way up. All of the lighter colors now become more white. And we actually want that to be right about here, just so we have more pure whites within the image. It'll give it a deeper range of color. And drag that up to about right there, just to get a little bit more of the black, pure black in there. Okay, now we are done with levels. Let's go ahead and move over to curves. This is completely optional. It takes a little bit to understand what you're doing with this. Basically, you have that same curve point, that graph chart in the back, and you have this bar here in the center. So again, you can do the exact same thing with this, not quite to the extent that you could with levels, but it's the same basic premise to explain it easily. So you have this bar here and you basically curve it and bend it and you can create multiple points. I have a templated effect that I tend to do for thumbnails just to kind of give it a little bit more of a pop. I curve the top up a little bit and I curve the bottom down a little bit. I sometimes reverse that depending on how the image is. For this one, this works fine. Again, this is completely optional. You can see that with it on and off, I think it just makes the image pop a little bit more. And that tends to be what a lot of images kind of need in order for it to be my liking. So, completely optional. Feel free to do it. That's what it looks like right there. You just click on it to create another point, and then drag it to change the positioning. Now, the hue saturation isn't something that's too needed, but we'll show it just so you know it. Right here's the saturation bar. That's just going to change the saturation levels of the coloring within the image. Normally you'd pop that up, but you can pop it down if you don't want a whole lot of color within your image. Normally you would pop that up. There is overdoing it, so don't overdo it. I would not suggest going over 15, although there are horrible images out there that do need it. For this one, it's pretty good. I'm going to just set it at 5 just to keep it there and just to have you guys know it's there. You can see it doesn't really make a whole lot of difference, but a little bit. And we're done with the adjustments. That's all I'm going to cover out of there because the rest of it you don't necessarily need unless you're actually looking for a specific effect for an image. Okay, let's get our logo in here. First, let's go ahead and just create another folder for logo. Go ahead and click and drag it on in. You can also do file place. That is an option as well. If you don't want to click and drag. And then just hit enter to accept the transform. And now you might notice we have a little bit of an issue. This logo has two different logos. The easiest and most simple way to deal with this and to allow us to position it perfectly how we want it is to go ahead and rasterize the layer. Whenever it's in here, it maintains the data that it needs. Whenever it has this little smart object icon on the layer, it maintains the data that it needs to be rescaled. So I can make it really small, accept it, and then I can make it really big again, up to the original resolution size before it starts getting bad quality. If I create Controller Command J to duplicate it, if I do this, you don't need to do this right now, and I go ahead and rasterize that, it gets rid of the smart objects. It maintains the current data that it has. So if I go ahead and I shrink it really small, accept it, and then make it bigger again, you see the difference. Now it maintains the data that it had whenever it was small, and it can't give that data back. So now you're just extending the pixels, and now it's horrible quality. So you need to be careful whenever you're rasterizing an image. Now, I don't see us needing it any bigger than it is right now, so we're safe to go ahead and rasterize. Just be careful. Don't resize it once you have it rasterized. And then go ahead and with the selection tool, go ahead and select the image, the logo image that you do not want, and then hit delete, and that will just get rid of it. I think I might have had a part of that going off canvas. Yes, I did. So I'll come up here and delete that. So now we just have the one image here. Let's go back up here, right click the layer, convert to smart object, and now we're free to make it small and then back large again. Now you can't go bigger than it did than you had it before, otherwise it will start losing data or resolution. But you're okay to go small and up to that size. So let's go ahead and position that down about here. And again, we're going to come down here to our layer 0, commands or control, select the preview to select the canvas. With the logo selected this time, we're going to come up here with the move tool selected and select the align horizontal centers. And you can see there it moved a little bit. You can also do vertical centers if you wanted an absolute 0 centered on the canvas. I don't, not for this one. So we're going to go and move it about right there. And right there. And right there. Okay. Now, black doesn't really work for this. Double click on an empty part of the layer to bring up the layer styles panel. Change the color overlay. Go ahead and click on that. Click on this little red preview. And you get a color picker. Select the hue that you want over here if you actually want to change the color. And then you can select the variation of that hue within this box. I'm going to go with white. That's probably going to work best. I want to go with a slightly off-white though. So over here on the far left side is all gray. And that's where you tend to want to stay with this type of stuff unless you're going for a theme. So we're going to stay right there, hit OK. Come down here to drop shadow if you want to drop shadow. This takes a little bit of time to get used to play around with. So take some time, play around with it, get used to it. This is the distance from the text, right here, distance. So you can see if I'm making a lot, you actually see the shadow going away from the text. So I'm just going to leave that at 0. The spread is how far the starting point of the drop shadow is away from the text. We're going to set that to 2, and then the size is the blur size of the text. So that's like the fading effect that you get from it. And that's typically going to be the largest pixel size on your thumbnails. I like 10 for that. Alright, so go ahead and hit OK. And now you can see we have our logo here, we have a drop shadow. Everything's hunky-dory. We're ready to go. In future templates, or no, not templates, tutorials, I'll go over how to do some added effects. We'll probably work within this same template, we might work with a different one, to get this logo to actually blend in and play with the background. So you can have the background showing through the logo and all that. But that will be for later. Go ahead and move your logo into that logo folder. And now let's go ahead and do some supporting text to get you a little bit used to the text tool. So right here's the text tool. You can just hit T on your keyboard to select it. Oh no. Okay, there we go. My Mac's a little bit slow whenever I record. Select one point. Let me redo that. Select one point to have one point selected. So I forget exactly what this is called. This is point text, I think. Or you can do paragraph text by clicking and dragging a particular text size. And what that's going to do is it's going to wrap the text once it reaches the bound of that box. Most of the time I don't do that. I just do the point text, if I'm remembering the name of that correctly. So point text, just click once and it will place a cursor for you. Right up here, you have your alignment. So typically for thumbnails, you want it to be one of these based upon how you have your logo. Since the logo is big and centered, it's the focal point. We're going to go with centered just so we can have this kind of blend in with it. So centered is okay. We'll adjust the rest of it later. So let's go ahead and get our supporting text in there. I went with the very original option, supporting text, as my supporting text. So right here, you can select your fonts. Again, in case you didn't miss that, right here. So you can either type it in. So let's say I wanted Helvetica, I could type that in, or I can click this little down arrow and select it, and it gives you a little sample depending on what version of Photoshop you're using. What would a good one for this be? Let's see. Well, for simplicity and sake of time, I am just going to go with a font that might not necessarily go perfect, but we'll go okay. So I'm going with Lato, and let's go with regular. I think thin would be a little bit too light to be able to read for a thumbnail. And then right here's the color. You can change the color. You can arch the text. I typically do not do that, but you can. And then once you have your text all good and hunky-dory, you just select that little check mark right there. And then with the text layer selected, again, come down here and select the canvas. Go back to the Move tool. Center it based off the horizontal axis. We're going to move that down just ever so slightly. And let's go ahead and get a shape in here just to get you guys going with shapes. So select the rectangle right here. You can click R on your keyboard. I guess you wouldn't click it. If you have something else, you can long click on that to find the rectangle tool right there. Obviously you have different options, but just make sure you have the rectangle. Click and drag. It's okay if you don't get it perfect. We'll go right about there. And move that underneath the text. Whatever's on top is what's on top on the canvas. Whatever's on bottom is what's on bottom on the canvas. And let's go ahead and make sure we have that perfectly centered. So instead of doing it on the canvas this time, we're going to go up to the text preview, which is just this T icon. Command or Control, and then click on that, and that will select the text. Now with the rectangle selected, go up to the Move tool, and make sure it's absolute centered. So do both the horizontal and vertical. Okay. And just so it looks more accurate, select your supporting text or whatever you decided to call it. Move it down 1 pixel. It's a little trick to visually make it look more centered. Okay. Now let's go ahead and select both of these. So since we have both of these in one folder, we can just select the folder. And we're going to move that down to the bottom. Let's go ahead and select the logo now. Again, we can just select the folder. And you can position that however you want. Let's get it lined perfectly up. And 10, 20 pixels above. Sounds good to me. And select the rectangle again. And let's take the opacity, which is right here. Set it to 80. And we are good. So now you have a thumbnail. Voila. But how do you save the thumbnail? Now this is just a basic starter thumbnail. Get you started. We'll get more advanced as we go. So to save it, you go File, Save for Web. This will save it with the best file size that you can basically save. If you go Save As, the file size will be bigger. So Save for Web. You can do JPEG, you can do PNG. Here it does not matter. Just so I don't mess up my settings. No, I don't have any settings set up. Alright, so we'll go PNG 24, just because it will save it looking the best, in my opinion. let's see, image size. So, yep, PNG 24. And then come down here to save. Select your save location whenever that comes up. I'll just do desktop. I still have caps lock on. Our thumbnail. And then hit save. And now it is saved, so we can minimize that. And we now have our thumbnail. So that is how you go into Adobe Photoshop and you go about making your first thumbnail. You can obviously change it, maneuver it, alter it, do whatever you want. You could do a different theme, you can do a different game, whatever. Let me know if this tutorial helped. Obviously, I will get back into the rhythm of it the more of these I do. I'm sorry this one was so shaky and unflawless. I'll go with that. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments, like the video if it helped, and I will see you all in the next one. Thank you for watching.